Hey friends, Elizabeth here from Plant-Based Bride, back again with another video. Today I'm setting up my bullet journal for April, and this video is kindly sponsored by Skillshare. I'll talk about them more at the end of the video, but for now I want to hop right into the setup. This month's theme is inspired by and dedicated to Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. I, like many of you I'm sure, have been absolutely heartbroken as I followed the news about what's happening in Ukraine, and I felt it was important to use my platform here on YouTube to bring awareness and encourage my followers to come together and support Ukraine through this horrific time. This video is coming out a little later than planned because I really wanted the artwork I was creating to come from the heart and to take the time to try to do Ukraine justice. I will be sharing facts in this video as I often do, but I'll be focusing on facts about Ukraine separate from the current conflict. There are two reasons that I want to do this. The first is that I'm not an expert, I'm not a political analyst or a journalist, and I would never want to be a source of misinformation, even unintentionally. I will, however, be sharing links in the description box to sources that you can seek out if you want to learn more about the current conflict. The second reason is that Ukraine is so much more than what they are currently suffering, and that's what I wanted to focus on. I'm also going to be linking resources in the description box that will help you figure out what you can do to help Ukraine right now. Whether you have the ability to donate or not, there are things you can do to help, and those resources are there for you in the description box, so be sure to check those out once the video is finished. I'm starting with a really simple layout on this first spread. I'll have the first piece of artwork on the left, and on the right, a very simple and minimalist calendar. I'm also cutting away the bottom section under the calendar and under all of the weeklies so that you can see the bottom portion of the first and final page of this setup, no matter which spread you're on. I'm also cutting tabs out of my weeklies so that I can quickly switch between one week and another or back to the calendar as needed. My bullet journal is a B5 size, which means it's larger than the standard A5, so your tabs may need to be smaller to fit in your bullet journal. The dimensions of the tabs in this setup are 2 by 2 for the diagonal sections and 3 spaces tall along the side. Once I finished cutting out all of my tabs, I flipped back to that first spread so I could start working on our first piece. This first piece was inspired by many pieces of artwork that I've seen in a similar vein, pardon the pun, where flowers are growing out of an anatomical heart. So I'm starting by drawing the anatomical heart, and I have done this once before in a theme a while back. So I actually used the exact same reference photo for the anatomical heart that I did back then. I'm using my Secura Micron in 01 for the outlines, and then I'm using a Micron with the very fine 005 nib for the smaller details and shading. I also used several different reference photos of sunflowers in a variety of positions and stages of opening, so that I could create these sunflowers coming out of the heart. I wanted to start by doing all of the inking, all of the line art, and then to go back in afterwards and add the color. So that's what I'm doing. Ukraine is a country located in Eastern Europe, and it's the second largest on the continent. And the capital is Kyiv. I worked really hard on my pronunciation, so hopefully it's close. Ukraine became fully independent in the late 20th century. The country consists almost entirely of level plains, but does have mountainous areas on some of its border. The vast majority of people in Ukraine speak Ukrainian, which is written with a form of the Cyrillic alphabet. Ukraine possesses a wealth of cultural talent and a considerable cultural legacy. They have a rich literary history, which my book club will actually be diving into in April, as we'll be reading a book written by a Ukrainian author. Ukraine also has a strong tradition of folk art, which continues to the modern day. I highly recommend looking up examples of Ukrainian folk art because it is absolutely stunning. The use of bright, contrasting colors and pattern, as well as almost mythical elements and a lot of representation of animals and plants and people is really beautiful to see. And personally, I feel like there's no better way to get to know a people or a culture than to learn about their art, whether it be visual art, theater, literature, music, or dance. Ukrainian folk art is not just limited to paintings or illustrations. Ukraine also has incredibly beautiful and intricate embroidery, wood carving, ceramics, and weaving, using techniques that are highly developed with stylized ornamentation that represents many regional styles. Folk music in Ukraine is still incredibly popular. Ritual songs, ballads, and historical songs were sung a cappella or accompanied by folk instruments such as the bandura, which is a multi-stringed, lute-like instrument. One style of energetic folk dance in Ukraine that was composed of leaps and kicks received renewed attention in the 21st century as martial arts practitioners integrated its movements into self-defense technique. I'm moving on to my weeklies and just quickly filling out all of the information here. My weeklies are super simple and they stay the same from month to month. They are very minimalist and they're exactly what I need. If you want to learn more about this style of weekly spread, which is called the rolling weekly, I'll link the video where I go into detail in the cards and in the description box down below, so you can check that out and learn all about it. Once I had all my weeklies filled out, I moved to the final spread of this setup, which is featuring 2 more pieces of artwork. So this first one was inspired by a very simple, cartoony drawing that showed half a sunflower and half an eye overlapped. And I thought that was such a cool idea. I saved it to my mood board on Pinterest when I was trying to come up with concepts, and I was just searching for images of sunflowers and seeing what would come up. And I found myself coming back to the image again and again and just thinking it was such an interesting concept. I decided to go a little more realistic here with my eye and the sunflower. Football, or soccer for those of us in North America, is by far the favorite sport in Ukraine. Ukraine is home to 7 beautiful World Heritage sites, including Kyiv's St. Sophia Cathedral. Traditional Ukrainian clothing can be recognized by beautiful, intricate, floral and ornamental hand-sewn embroidery work on a plain white linen shirt. Ukraine is also the world's largest producer of sunflower seeds, and it's estimated that the total size of Ukraine's sunflower farmlands could cover the entire territory of Slovenia. Once I was finished inking in that illustration, I moved over to the last illustration, and this is a really simple outline of a woman standing in the moonlight, holding a sunflower, and the petals are raining down on her head. Because Ukraine has vast tracts of arable land with fertile black soil, it's an ideal place for growing wheat and other food crops. Ukraine has been nicknamed the breadbasket of Europe, because Ukraine is one of the largest producers of wheat in the world. Once all that inking was done, I flipped back to the first image so that I could add color, and I'm using a combination of gouache and watercolor from Winsor & Newton to add the color, focusing on yellow and blue because those are the 2 colors of the Ukrainian flag, but also incorporating a small amount of brown and green just to finish off the sunflowers. Ukraine is also home to the Tunnel of Love, which is a semi-abandoned railway line in northwestern Ukraine, and has been called the most romantic place on Earth. This is a natural train tunnel, where green arches formed by trees on both sides of the single-track railway line come together to meet. According to local legends, couples who visit the place will have their wishes granted. My initial plan was to create watercolor paintings along the bottom here of sunflower fields, but my first attempt was not particularly successful, and I decided to pivot and try something a little different, especially because I felt like the full watercolor painting didn't really fit with the art style of the other pieces of this theme. So instead, I decided to draw a sunflower in its stages of opening up, from completely open to completely closed on the left side, and then from closed to open on the right. Very simple life stages of a sunflower. I also decided to paint all of my tabs black, just to keep them simple. I didn't want them to distract from the artwork that I was creating. Flipping to the final spread here and adding color again, focusing on yellow and blue, but again incorporating some brown and green as needed. Ukraine is also home to the deepest metro station in the world, located at a depth of 105.5 meters or 346 feet. We have Ukraine to thank for the gas lamp, which was invented by 2 Ukrainian pharmacists in 1853. I definitely recommend that you look up some examples of Ukrainian music and art, find images of their beautiful architecture and fields of sunflowers. Ukraine is a beautiful country full of creative people, and their culture deserves to be celebrated. Before I show you the final flip through of this setup, I want to quickly talk to you about today's video sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves learning and wants to explore their creativity and learn new skills. Invest in yourself and your personal growth. If you have a specific skill you're trying to learn, Skillshare is the perfect place to start. From photography and illustration to graphic design, fine art, and more, you can find classes that will match your goals and interests. Skillshare is ad-free, so you can stay in the zone while you're exploring new skills. New premium classes launch each week, so there's always something new to discover. Also, very exciting news, the entire catalog is now available with subtitles in Spanish, French, Portuguese, and German. I'm currently taking Josiah Jazza Brooks' class, Mastering Illustration, Sketching, Inking, and Color Essentials. I'm really loving this class so far. Jazza has such a warm, inviting, encouraging presence, and all of his tips are incredibly helpful, actionable, and practical. I especially loved the focus on planning, creating mood boards, and sketching before diving into your final artwork, because this is something that I always recommend and practice myself. I created so many loose sketches in Procreate using my iPad before deciding on designs. For this video that you're watching right now, I created mood boards on Pinterest for inspiration, and I spent quite a bit of time sketching before cleaning up those lines and getting ready for the start of this video. Because Skillshare is sponsoring this video, the first 1,000 people to use the link or my code plantbasedbride will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and now the final reveal, all of the spreads in my April setup in honor of Ukraine. Here is the final result, and I must say, creating this theme was very outside of my comfort zone. I really pushed myself creatively to try to make art that means something, art that says something, art that conveys emotion. It's not that I haven't done that in the past, but I think for the most part with my art, I focused on creating things that are aesthetically pleasing, that make me happy to look at. And I tend to shy away from creating art that makes a statement or reveals deep emotion, because it can be vulnerable and scary to create that way. But I'm also proud of how these pieces turned out and proud of myself for giving it a go. And I also want to encourage you to try creating art with a message if you've been hesitant to, like I have. I hope you learned something about Ukraine in this video. I hope you enjoyed the setup. Please check out the links in the description box for the sources, the resources, places to donate, what you can do to help support Ukraine right now. Even the tiniest action that feels so insignificant on a personal level can really add up to huge change if we all stand together. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Don't forget, the first 1,000 people to use my code plantbasedbride or the link in my description box will get a 1-month free trial. Thank you so much to my patrons for your support, and I'll see all of you very soon in my next video. Bye, friends.